Hi everyone, it's Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen broadcasting live from New York City. I want to take this opportunity to thank the administrators of Jail Events at LA. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address your followers and your wonderful audience. I'm going to try to share some of my greatest pearls of dating tonight. And together we'll become more intelligent, more effective, more successful daters. I always open my presentations by encouraging everyone to go to my favorite platform, that is Shidduch Profiles Plus, or used to be called Partners in Shidduchim. It's a fantastic platform where you could put your dating resume up on there, or your friends or your relatives or someone you know that needs a shidduch. It's a great platform. I've made 7 or 8 matches just this past year alone from there. I use it extensively. It's one of the only platforms that you could do a search and look at almost 2,000 profiles. So I really want to urge everyone, get on there, put your resume on Shidduch Profiles Plus. It could also come up on the internet search as Partners in Shidduchim. And if anybody out there has any questions in dating after this presentation and would like my opinion, I help and I consult with people literally all over the world. You can reach me at 305-206-1916. That runs the gamut. If you need me to help you put together a top 10 list, which I'll speak about tonight, or it talks about also if you're in the middle of a relationship, you need help, or you're married and you have an issue with Shalom Bayit, which I'm doing a lot of lately, or you'd like to get matched up. Whatever it is that you need under that umbrella of dating or Shalom Bayit, feel free to reach out to me, either on my cell phone, preferably on my WhatsApp line, 305-206-1916, or feel free to write me an email at drjackcohen18@gmail.com, drjackcohen18@gmail.com. Also, you can go to my website if you'd like to see more lectures. There's quite a few lectures on my website. That's drjackdating.com. On Torah Anytime, I have close to 500 lectures on dating. So there's a plethora of information available to you to become a more effective and more successful dater. Tonight's presentation is titled, Do I Go With My Intuition? And that's a very, very scary word, because intuition without science is dangerous. So tonight, we're going to study the science a little bit, and then using that in combination with intuition, we can then proceed with a fairly successful feeling, or a optimistic or a stable feeling that I know I'm making the right decision. We call it the leap of faith. But before we do that, I wanted to address a certain article that was recently published. We live in the world of what's called AI, artificial intelligence. Today, that's the hottest thing in technology, artificial intelligence. So I came across a fantastic article that was given to me by one of my students in Bell Harbor in Florida, which is, by the way, my favorite place to take a vacation since I used to live in Miami Beach for many years. And listen to this. This is a fantastic article. Really, it behooves us to review this. A few years ago, a brilliant scientist named Samantha Joel wanted to determine, can we see where AI, artificial intelligence, can have a hand in predicting successful relationships. You know, computers are doing amazing things for us. And if we think about it as Jews, everything that we have at our disposal was given to us by Hashem, or God, in order to help us serve Him better. So, Joel's plan, here's what she did. She herself was a PhD in human relations and psychology. She recruited a large number of scientists who had collected data on relationships. Her team included 85 other researchers. Could you imagine? 86 researchers on a PhD level, and was built with a database of almost 12,000 heterosexual couples. We need to say heterosexual couples because we live in a rather crazy world today, so we have to be very careful. The size of the data was impressive. The researchers had data on the demographics, that includes the age and the education, the income and the race of the people involved, and other things like their appearance, their interests and their hobbies, their mental and physical health, their values, and much, much more. Okay, so now, teaming up with 85 of the world's most notable scientists, combing data from 43 studies, mining hundreds of variables collected from more than 10,000 people, utilizing state-of-the-art machine learning models. Using all that, could that help us pick better romantic partners? Imagine, they had at their disposal the fastest computers, microchips and all, the best minds out there involved in this one study. Can we determine better relationships using the latest cutting-edge artificial intelligence? And ladies and gentlemen, and the answer is no. They could not come up with any kind of conclusion that would help them to be able to predict with any kind of prediction, with any kind of, relative accuracy, better romantic partners. You know what they learned? And this is what the lead researcher, Dr. Samantha Joel, tells the interviewer. We learned is how unpredictable relationships seem to be. That there was no way you could pin any kind of like rules or regulations that we can come out of this study. So what happened here? Let's just review this a little bit. What traits makes people desirable to others? People wrote down the things that are superficial. I want someone tall. I want someone from a certain race. I want someone rich. Someone in a certain profession. If you happen to have listened to my Instagram live event yesterday, we debunked all these myths. Yesterday we spoke about creating a top 10 list of what you want, of what you need in a potential partner. Needs are very different than wants. Needs are objective midot or quality of character traits that will allow you to live with someone happily. Needs are things like kindness, compassion, patience, tolerant, no anger issues, flexible personality, simchat chayim, an optimistic personality. Wants is what we see most people chasing, which is inappropriate and wrong, and that's why so many people are not finding their true love. Tall, desired race, rich, profession, sexy name, ridiculous things that Hollywood puts or plants into our minds, all in order just to stall the process of getting married. This is the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination's way of slowing down shidduchim. Why is that? Because the last barrier, the last frontier to be conquered before the Mashiach will come will be Jewish homes. That the Yetzer Hara is trying to do everything he can, pull out all the stops to ensure that as few people as possible get married and build Jewish homes. So he's going to fight us to the death on this one. And what does he do? He puts Hollywood fantasies into our minds, which corrupt us, and as a result, stalls the process of looking for the right person, the right partner in our life. But I want to share with you what they did find. They were not able to make determinations as to whether AI or artificial intelligence can help us predict, a romantic future partner. But here are the conclusions they came to, which are pretty on target in terms of having a Torah outlook on things. Let's say we have John and Sally. John and Sally are going out. The kind of questions we'd like to ask before to help us determine if they'll be happy together would be the following. John, were you satisfied with your life before you met Sally? John, were you free from depression before you met Sally? And John, did you have a positive effect on people before you met Sally? Notice, in my lectures, I stress this a lot without ever having gone to this, this research topic, and this research presentation. That is, work on yourself first. Stop thinking that the Mr. Perfect, the Miss Perfect is out there and they're just waiting to embrace you in open arms. You know how you're going to meet your partner? The more you work on yourself, the more you focus on growth, the more you focus on bettering your midot, your qualities of character, the better chances are that you're going to find Mr. or Mrs. Right quickly. And that's the key here. These are not Torah-observant Jews. If anything, these are Gentiles who are producing this research. But they hit on a very interesting point. If you want to find Mr. or Miss Right, work on yourself, improve your game, improve your midot, and that's going to magnetize you to your potential soulmate. People are going to be in awe of your kindness, of your compassion, of your goodness. So that's what's going to help you more than anything, working on the midot. But what happens is, we live in a world of flash and cash, of trying to impress people with expensive cars and take them to fancy restaurants and try to show off, and I did this and I did that. No. That's not what people are looking for. In order to help best get to your goal in terms of getting married, focus on your character traits. Focus on your state of mind. Focus on your happiness. Focus on your simchat chayim. With that, let me open this fantastic story. There's a woman out there called, she's a very noted, give me a second, let me just get her name, Gila Mandelson. Yeah, Gila Mandelson, a very successful psychologist who lives in Israel. For all her life, she basically was not religious at all. She was a secular college kid who went on a birthright trip. And when she arrived in Israel, someone took her to an Orthodox wedding. She was mystified by the beauty, by the pageantry, by the holiness of it all. That piqued her interest into going and discovering her heritage of being Jewish. What's it all about? She started asking questions, and lo and behold, she found herself on the path of becoming religious. And now she's more religious, she's living in Israel, and she's dating someone who's a Ben Torah. He's studying at the Yeshiva Esha Torah, a wonderful place that I had the privilege to teach for on the campus of the University of Miami. And now they're about to get engaged. But protocol being what it is, the young man took her to his dean or his Rosh HaYeshiva, as we say in Hebrew, for an interview, which is quite common. If you study Torah and you have good values and you're about to get engaged, so the last thing you do as a symbolic event is you take the young woman to your rabbi and you want to get his approbation. You'd like to get his haskama, as you say in Hebrew, that he gives you his blessing and that, she's right for you, and he sees this as a fantastic opportunity and a great match, and both of you will build a wonderful, what they call Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael, a beautiful Jewish home. So listen to what she says. After more than enough dating, it was clear Avraham, who is today my husband, was going to propose to me. But first he told me protocol requires that I meet the head of his yeshiva. So Avraham leads me into his Rosh Yeshiva's office, into his dean's office. An imposing rabbinic-looking figure is sitting behind the large desk. And he welcomes her with a smile. He says to her, "You must be Gila." Immediately putting me at ease, she writes. He and my soon-to-be fiancé Avraham exchange a few words, and my soon-to-be fiancé politely exits. Still smiling, the rabbi asked me a bit about myself. The conversation was flowing, and I was certain I was making a great impression. Then there was a pause. The dean, or the Rosh Hashiva, as we say in Hebrew, leans forward in his chair, gazes at me intently, and he says, "So, Gila," he asks her the million-dollar question. "Please give me your definition of what love is." Sounds like a simple question, right? Here's what Gila tells him. "Oh," she says to herself, "I wasn't prepared for this kind of question, but you know what? I was doing so well so far with the rabbi. I figured no problem, I can handle it. As they say in English, I got this one." And she starts to answer the rabbi's question, by saying the following. "Dear Rabbi, love," she says confidently, "is the feeling you have when you feel that you have that feeling." And there she sits, wondering, I just blew it. She felt like a hot air balloon losing steam, losing air, or blown out of the sky like the American Air Force just blew out those balloons. "I trailed off," she says, "my self-assurance and my self-confidence dissipating by the second. Then it hit me. Bam! Here I am expected to love my husband. I'm about to get married, and I can't even define what love is." And then she goes on to write, "Love is probably the most misunderstood word in the world." One popular New Age magazine, she writes, says, "Love is not definable." And she says to herself, well, that's pretty ridiculous, because if it's not definable, then how can you pursue it? Can't be, right? First of all, I answered the rabbi, love is a feeling. And she says, she came to her own conclusion. Love can't be a feeling. There's no way. Because feelings come and feelings go. While physical attraction is essential, and we know that it's important in a loving relationship, if you're going to build a relationship based on physical attraction and physical attraction only, well, guess what? That can draw you to a lousy human being, a grown-up baby, an abuser, or someone just totally wrong for you. And even if being with that person feels good, feelings are fickle. They're here today and gone tomorrow. You know, it's very interesting. I was watching the news yesterday, and I noticed that the famous actress Raquel Welch passed away. Now, I'm 60 years old. I remember her when she was younger. And I asked myself, you know what? I just want to Google, how many times was Raquel Welch married? I expected, a fair amount of times. But there it was. Google tells me she was married 4 times and was single for like the last 14 years of her life. What does that say about a Hollywood marriage? A marriage that's based purely on physicality. I'm not saying there's any kind of guarantees, but thank God we in the Orthodox Jewish world have better marriages, and we usually have the same partner going as long as possible. And the more we work on improving our relationships with our wives and our spouses, and the more that we work on our own character traits, the longer and more prosperous and more fruitful our marriages are. So therefore, Gila Mandelson writes, while love entails an intense emotion, it's got to be based on something more solid, and that's reason. So before we lose our head, we've got to delve deeply into who the other person is, evaluating not only his or her personality, but more importantly, her character, his and her values. So she's coming to her own conclusion here that a great marriage, great dating experience is based on searching for character, for searching for values. I was sitting at a midnight table with my dear friend Laser Brody the other night, and we were just schmoozing over a bottle of wine. And he was telling me, I mean, this is to an audience maybe in LA or not in LA, how he was in LA speaking in Nesach many years ago, and he saw a 29-year-old girl who came up to approach him, ask him for a blessing. She should get married. She was a polished woman. She's a teacher. Looks good. And suddenly, a few minutes later, there was a line to talk to him. A young man who's 32 years old approached him, and he thought at that moment, you know what? I can make a shidduch here. And he introduced them, and it was going well. And they went out and they dated. And now it came time to the further proposal. And unfortunately, this is what he told me. She got the ring. She looks at the ring. Only 3.1 carat? And she gave the ring back. It wasn't good enough for her. Is that character? Is that values? That's pretty horrific. When society can toxify us and corrupt us this badly, we have a problem. So again, we write, you must identify his or her virtues when you date. And they must be rooted in a belief system strong enough to withstand temptation. It doesn't make a difference if the boy or girl, man or woman that you're married is liberal or conservative, deliberate, spontaneous, extroverted, introverted. That's not as important. You know what's important? When you date, here's what you should be looking for, she writes. These are the conclusions she came to in her life. Is the person that I'm dating caring? Is the person that I'm dating loyal? Is the person that I'm dating patient? Is the person that I'm dating responsible? Is the person that I'm dating honest? Is the person that I'm dating have a virtue of compromise, that they're willing to work things out when there's a disagreement? Is the person that I'm dating morally unshakable? These are the qualities that will be the glue for a long-term relationship. These are the qualities that allow for a 40, 50-year marriage. Love is not just about finding the right person. Love is about being the right person, which goes back to the conclusions that the AI, the artificial intelligence study that we just cited at the beginning of the lecture by Dr. Joel, came to the same conclusions. Are you the right person? Are you happy with yourself? Are you emotionally healthy? Are you growing? Are your character values constantly being refined? If you don't possess the values and character you want the other person to have, well, guess what? Ladies and gentlemen, let's all get to work and go acquire those values. In addition to seeing the good in each other, love requires that you remain focused on it. One of the biggest problems that I see with young couples getting divorced is they think that once you just get married, it's just automatic pilot. I told the story about 3 weeks ago. I had a young couple here who were going through some stuff. And the girl was adamant about divorce. She's 26 years old, a 3-year-old boy and a 1-year-old boy. I said to her, are you sure you want to do this? The boy admits that he made mistakes, but he's willing to agree to come and see me for training to become a really solid husband twice a week. And I'll fix his mistakes. All she says to me, she looks at me, she says, Rabbi Cohen, I'm not interested. Just point the way to the bet din, to the Jewish court. I want to get my get now. I need a divorce. I said, you want to be 26 years old with 2 kids, divorced? You ain't going to be worth much on the market in terms of dating. No, I'm ready to get divorced. This is what's going on today. Not willing to try, not willing to work at it. What's in it for me? And that's a problem. Unless the guy's an absolute abuser, then obviously there's a valid reason. So in short, love requires not only your heart, but your head. And I spoke at length about this in yesterday's presentation, that we Jews, we date with our heads. We don't date with our hearts. Heart's important, but we have to have solid research. We've checked the guy out, we've checked the girl out, and everything seems to fit. The values are right. The character is right. So, let's go back to the question, what is love? And how would we define love? And so Miss Mandelson tells us the following. There she is, standing with her future husbands to be Dean or Rosh HaYeshiva, the head of the yeshiva, and the rabbi defines love for her. And she says the following, I'd rather define love as my husband's Rosh HaYeshiva did it for me that day. And that is, love is the emotional attachment between a man and a woman that results from deeply appreciating each other's goodness. Again, that famous word goodness, chesed, midot, character. That's what creates great love. That's what creates a fantastic bond that lasts for decades and decades. Again, let's repeat that. Love is the emotional attachment that results from deeply appreciating each other's goodness in words and in actions. Very important. As we say in Pirkei Avot, emor me'at va'aseh harbeh. Speak little and do much. In Judaism, we value you by your actions, the words that you say, the deeds that you commit to. That's how we know what you're all about. And those attitudes and actions come upon, or they act from being moved by the person's goodness, the person that you're dating. Such a husband and a wife will not throw in the towel when they have a problem in life. They're not going to walk out on each other and say, you're not for me, I want a divorce. No, they'll say to each other, you know what, I checked you out when we dated. We spent a lot of time talking to each other. We knew that we were on the same path. As they say, love is not two people staring at each other. Love is two people, the man and woman, staring out in the same direction. So I know that you and I were staring in the same direction. And we know that we checked each other out. And underneath it all, even if we have problems and we have disagreements, you know what? You're still the same good person that I married 20, 30, 10 years ago. So we can get those good feelings back. We just got to work on it a little bit. And that means that love means I appreciate your goodness. You appreciate my goodness. And then she writes the following. She tells us what happens when there's no Torah involved in a person's life. Torah is amazing because Torah establishes a pathway for good character. She writes as a psychologist that she had a couple that she had the pleasure to work with, and Larry and Linda were their names, and they were on the same page in virtually everything. They agreed on travel, they agreed on politics, they agreed on diet. Larry and Linda agreed on the environment. You name it, they agreed upon it. She writes, I never saw two people so made for each other. They seemed so happy together. Larry and Linda were the enviable couple of the community. And guess what? After many years of being married, Larry and Linda are now divorced. What happened? Despite their amazing compatibility, why didn't their love last? And the answer she comes up with is because neither Larry or Linda possessed the idea of striving to improve themselves, are constantly working on themselves to better and better their midot, their character traits. They never saw marriage as a spiritual path, a sacred bond to commit to and to work on. One of the greatest things as being as Jews is we have rituals. We have Shabbat, which connects us. We have holidays, which connects us. We have the glorious holiday of Purim, which connects us. We have the incredible Seder nights of Pesach that connect us. We have all these wonderful mitzvot that connect us. And as a result, by having these connectors, we're forced to grow. If a person doesn't grow, they're not moving forward. And so Larry and Linda didn't have this. They didn't have a spiritual path. They didn't commit to a sacred bond. As a result, self-centeredness took over, leaving Larry and Linda devoted only to himself or herself rather than to the team. As a result, their marriage just crumbled and deteriorated. And that's what happened. So, to succeed in love, let's just wrap it up here. We must focus on what matters most: character and values, including the concept of self-improvement and commitment to the relationship. If you're going out with someone, pay attention if they tell you, oh, you know what, I listen to this podcast, I go to this rabbi's lecture, I speak to this rebbitzin, I have a partners in Torah mate, whatever it may be. But that is a light bulb that goes off that says, whoa, this person is committed to growth. This person is committed to character improvement. That means that this person is a mature person and they'll be committed to the relationship, because the chips are going to be down once in a while in life. And as a result, you'll always have to, you want to be married to someone who's committed to growth, who's committed to constantly refreshing and re-examining his or her virtues and values, and committed to always being involved in acts of kindness, in voluntary work, etc. Thank God, as Orthodox Jews, we have no shortage of volunteer work that we can do to help and improve people. And if we think we're helping other people, no, wrong. Just give me a second. We're not helping other people. We are helping ourselves more than anything, because the work that we do only vitalizes us and helps us improve our own character traits. Okay, now moving on. So, that word intuition, which we titled tonight's date. Intuition in making a decision could be, but, just going to check something, it has to be based with fact also. One of the most frequent questions that I get asked is, how do I know if I'm dating the person that's Mr. Right or Miss Right? So now we can take intuition, we can partner that up with a little scientific formula, and then you can take that leap of faith knowing that your intuition is leading you in the right direction. So let's go into that area a little bit. Here we go. Now before that, I want to share an amazing story with you about character and values. There was a couple that got married in Israel in the springtime, an Israeli couple. Before they got married, the young man's grandma, who was pretty wealthy, had a minhag, or a habit, that she would welcome every new bride into the family by giving her a gift, usually a piece of jewelry. And there was no exception. This girl's name was Zahava. One day, her future Khatan, or her husband's grandma, knocked on the door. She came over, she gave her a hug and a kiss. She says, I want to welcome you to the family. She had a little bag with her from a jewelry store, and she presents her with a present. She pulls out the box, and she opens the box, and she's awed. The grandma gave her a very expensive diamond ring, probably even nicer than the engagement ring that her husband gave her, which is the grandson of the woman. And so she puts it on. It was a little big, but she put that night, the night of the wedding, she's dancing in her wedding. She knew that it was a little loose, but what happened was she had put her wedding band in front of it so it could hold it in proper position. They danced the night away, and Baruch Hashem, it was a beautiful wedding, and now it was time for Sheva Berachot, and the Shabbat Sheva Berachot would be held in the husband's side, which was in Netanya, which is a waterfront community in Israel. After lunch, they sit down, they're enjoying themselves, when the mother of the groom looks at Zahava and says, Zahava, where's the ring that grandma gave you? And she's like, I don't know. She's looking and looking. She said, and the mother-in-law starts to get a little, upset. Do you realize how much grandma spent on that ring? She says, relax, don't worry. So the mother-in-law goes up to the apartment where the couple was staying in their apartment. They had a second floor, like a duplex. And she starts rummaging through the girl's personal possessions, including all her lingerie. The girl was mortified. She didn't know where to hide. Her mother-in-law was going through all her stuff, so afraid that the ring was lost. She comes out, she says, I can't find the ring. Where's your ring? And she said, you know what? You guys took a walk downstairs by the ocean front. Now go try to find the ring on a beach. So they went down, they made a look, they took a look, and they couldn't find anything. And then she came up and she says to herself, perhaps yesterday before we came over, we were in our apartment in Yerushalayim. We had a meal, and I washed for the meal. Perhaps when I took my ring off in order to wash my hands for Nitlat Yadayim, maybe I left it by the sink. Hopefully, Zevi, her husband, she told Zevi, right after Shabbat's over, we'll make Havdalah. You'll go into the car, race over to our apartment. Hopefully, I'm sure it's there right by the sink. So they're waiting breathlessly all Shabbat. They made Havdalah. Zebi hops in the car. He races from Netanya to Yerushalayim. He gets there. He looks high and low. He calls her up. He says, Zahava, I didn't find anything. And from that day, it was cold relationship between Zahava and her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law saw her as some sort of shlamazel who couldn't, keep anything. And as a result, they didn't have such a great relationship. And that was like, they got married around May, Lag BaOmer time. Throughout the summer, they didn't speak, and Zebi's father said, I can't allow this to continue any further, this bad blood between his wife and their daughter-in-law. So he decided to invite them over for lunch, and he told his wife, let's present Zahava with a nice, beautiful vase. So Zahava came over with Zevi, and they had a beautiful lunch. They had gift wrapped this beautiful vase, and on the way out, the husband, Zevi's father, gives the vase to his wife to present to the daughter-in-law. There she is about to present the vase to the daughter-in-law, when suddenly she says, I want to give you a beautiful gift that I want you guys to put in the dining room. And suddenly she says, but you know what, in second thought, perhaps Zevi should get this vase, because you know what happened with the ring. At that moment, Zahava burst out in tears, crying. She says, that's it, we're done. I'm never going to come back to your house ever again. It was over. It was World War III. And throughout the summer, whatever efforts Zevi made to get his wife to talk to his mother didn't work whatsoever. And now the summer passes, and now we're on to Rosh Hashanah. It's time for Rosh Hashanah, and Zevi goes into the closet to pull out the suit, his wedding suit that he was going to wear for Rosh Hashanah, because it was a beautiful suit that he had bought for his wedding. And there he is, putting his suit on, and Zahava was a great cook, so he was having a hard time, closing the jacket. As he's about to close the jacket, he feels a lump in his pocket. He puts his hand into his pocket, and whammo, comes out the ring. He shows it to Zahava, and Zahava says, wow, I don't believe it. You're the one who lost the ring, not me. And guess what? The first thing she did was to call his mother and to say, you see that? All the while you thought that I was the shlamazel who couldn't hold the ring. It's your son. And she felt so relieved, so vindicated. And from then on, every day, Zevi would be the butt of Zahava's jokes. If Zevi was sent to the bank with some money for a deposit, she would say to him, are you sure you don't want me to hire guards to make sure that you don't lose the money? Or she sent him to the park with the kids Years later, she would say, you know what? Make sure you don't lose the kids. He was the butt of her jokes. He didn't say anything. Grandma, after many years, had passed on. It's about 15 years into the marriage. They had many kids. And one day, Zahava's walking by a jewelry store, and she sees all the new types of jewelry that now were fashionable. And she's thinking to herself, you know what? People trade their jewelry all the time. Maybe it's time that I traded Grandma's piece. I want to get something more updated. So she decided to go to the jeweler that she knew Grandma used to go to very, very, consistently. She walked in, she says, you know my husband's grandma, she used to shop by you all the time. She says, yeah, I remember Mrs. Goldstein, a great customer. Every time there was someone in her family that got married, she bought the new bride-to-be a piece of jewelry, and I remember she was a great customer. He says, do you remember? She says, she pulls out the ring that she got from Grandma, and she says, you see this piece? She bought it from here. I want to exchange it for something more fashionable. He looks at the ring, and he says, wow, this is a beautiful piece. But I know all the jewelry that I sell, and I can tell you one thing. I didn't sell this ring. This is not something that I sell. This is not a company that I carried or I've ever carried. And she's like in shock. What do you mean? My grandma shopped here all the time. She says, you know what? Go home and pull out the GIA certificate. The certificate that says where it's from and the grade and the quality. It'll tell you also where it was bought. So she goes home, and in Israel, almost every house has what's called a kasefet. Kasefet means a safety deposit, a safety deposit box, or like a small little safe that they keep. So she opens the safe, puts in the right combination numbers, pulls out the GI certificate, and also reaches for the what's called the Kabbalah, the receipt. She knew that she had been married in the springtime. She looks at the receipt and she turns white as a ghost. She's waiting for Zevi to come home. Zevi comes home from work, and they're having dinner, and she tells him, Zevi, you know what? Today I got an inkling for new jewelry. After a while, I got bored. So I decided to visit Grandma's jeweler, and I showed him the ring. And I told him I want to trade up, and he says to me, it's doubled in value. And when I said to him, isn't it amazing? Look how you're doubled in value. He looks at the ring and he says to me, I didn't sell this ring. It's not my ring. And I said, how could that be? Grandma only shopped in your store. And he said to me, go home and look up the receipt and look up the GIA certificate. And I looked up the GIA certificate and the receipt. And so, Zevi, I have a question for you. We got married in Lag BaOmer, which is when Grandma gave me the ring. How come the receipt says September? And then she says to him, I figured it out. You went and bought me a new ring in order to make sure that I would become friendly with your mother again. You wanted me to be able to make peace with your mother. So you went out on a limb to buy me a new ring, which explains why all that summer you were never home. You always told me you had work to do. And I know what you did. You went and bought that ring, and then for years later, you took a loan because you always were working every Monday and Wednesday night. Probably odd jobs to pay for that ring. And ladies and gentlemen, we spoke about tonight's presentation. The most important thing is character and values. And Zahava says to Zevi, he says, you know what? I thought I acquired a diamond ring. No, I acquired a diamond in a husband. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're looking for in a potential mate. So again, we often ask, how do we know if we're dating the right person? And so I often share the following with people. There's a formula called the pair test. The pair test goes like this. P is physical attraction, A is admiration and acceptance, E, or rather I, is emotional intimacy, and R is respect. And I'm going to explain to you how this formula works so that when you're dating someone, you've got your eye looking for a pair. First of all, are you physically attracted to the person? Then we're going to explain to you what is admiration and acceptance, what is emotional intimacy, and what is respect. So let's get started. If the person that you're dating matches up and checks off all these boxes, you then can take the leap of faith and your intuition will be right on target to marry that person. Physical attraction. Two people contemplating marriage should certainly be attracted to each other. But physical attraction doesn't mean you have to see stars and bells and whistles and fireworks have to go off. Physical attraction can take 5 or 6 or 7 dates to take place, as long as it's progressing. Two people can initially feel a strong physical attraction to each other, even if they don't know each other. This won't last for the long term unless they can look beyond the physical attraction area and begin to relate to each other on a deeper level. Many people who are married started off their relationships without feeling instant buzz and fireworks, but it develops over time. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you felt when you first met. What's more important is, are you progressing in that physical attraction area? How strong should the attraction be? You should feel comfortable with being with the other person. You want to be seen with the person. You'd go out to dinner with the person. You'd want to be seen at a wedding with the person. Okay, men are attracted to visual images. Women tend to be stimulated by other things like the smile of a man, or his gentle smile, or the warmth in his eyes. It doesn't matter how intense those feelings are as long as they're present. Keep in mind, it can take 4, 5, 6, or 7 dates in order to have physical attraction. So that's P, physical attraction. A, admiration. What is admiration? Admiring the person that you're dating means you look up to him, you look up to her. You feel that they have special qualities that you've not seen in other people that you've dated. It grows into belief that you cherish each other and that you care about each other's well-being. So that's admiration. What is acceptance? Acceptance is a willingness to appreciate the other person, even though you know there are things about him or her that you don't like. For example, she got kicked out of high school, but she turned things around. He had an issue with drugs, but he turned things around. He has a medical condition, but he's under medical care. No one's perfect. Don't expect to find Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. Every one of us has flaws. Let me repeat that. Every one of us has flaws. Can you live with those flaws? That's important. That's why it's critical. You need a dating mentor more than anything. I never expected in my life that I'd be a dating mentor. I was trained as a foot surgeon and a sports medicine specialist. But here I am. I volunteered to help people and teach them Torah subjects. And as a result, many of them came to me for questions on dating. And I find today, by attrition, I became a dating mentor, and I love my work, and I lecture extensively on it. I find today that people need guidance. Without guidance, without having someone to bounce your ideas off to, without having someone you can check your relationships with, you can waste your time. So that's why I love helping people and analyzing their relationships for them. Just tonight, before this lecture, I saw 2 couples that are dating, just to see where they're going and what's going on, if they're going in the right direction. Again, all of us have character flaws, all of us make mistakes. Acceptance means, can I accept the person in spite of their flaws? And that comes down to doing a cheshbon, or an accounting of the positives and the negatives. We need to see that the positives outweigh the negatives. And there's no negative that's really bothering you so much that you can't, that it annoys you to the point where you could not be with that person. Okay, so that's A. That is acceptance, and that is also admiration. Then what's the next one? I, intimacy, or emotional intimacy. When a couple that's dating begins to feel that they're more comfortable with each other, they're developing what's called emotional intimacy. And that means it's a deep feeling. 2 people who insist that they knew that they were right for each other from the minute they met don't have intimacy. That's infatuation. Couples who have emotional intimacy develop a deep sense of friendship and connectivity with each other. They can express ideas to each other. They can share the most secretive ideas with each other. They have no problems relating to each other. They don't pretend and have an air of pretense. They discuss experiences, ideas, and feelings. They share intimately, freely. They expose their vulnerability. That's a key word. They're willing to expose their vulnerability. They allow the person into their life. They open a window into their soul for the other person to come in. They can empathize with each other. They give encouragement and emotional support to each other. They feel comfortable being in each other's presence. They do things that make the other person happy. He buys her chocolates that she loves, her favorite Godiva chocolates. She picks them up from the airport or the subway, doing nice acts of kindness. Right? That shows us that we're connected to each other and we're committed to each other. It's a state of being that couples must develop in order to have a good and close marriage. But it takes time to develop. 8, 10, 12, 13 dates in order to get there. And that's important. How do you develop emotional intimacy, which is a critical requirement to getting married? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of to-dos. Vary what you do on a date. Don't make every date drinks at a club. Don't make every date dinner at a restaurant. Change it up a little bit. One day is a walk in the Central Park, let's say from New York. Another day is a paint night. Another day is a romantic dinner. Another day is a walk by the ocean. Whatever it means. Keep changing things up. Another day is shuffleboard. Another day is bowling. Another one is, rent a boat, whatever it is. By changing up the dates, you'll get to see facets of the person that you may not see in another way, because you never know. There are what we call seminal moments that people suddenly see, that's the one for me. 2, have fun together. Dating is not just about interrogations, but you must remember that at the end of the day, you're going on a date to have fun. So chill and enjoy. Make each date purposeful by trying to find out something new about the person you're dating on each successive date. Talk on the phone on days that you're not dating. And do acts of thoughtfulness and kindness, like I said, picking each other up, buying each other, favorite drinks or favorite snacks, things like that. And what we're going to see here, when we know that we've hit that level of emotional intimacy, is that you're comfortable with each other. You're comfortable asking each other advice. You're no longer going to your parents for guidance. You're going to your partner for guidance. You're going to the person you're dating. You're problem solving together. You look forward to doing nice things for each other. If you have a disagreement, you work things out. And the last thing is, last but not least, R. Pair. The last letter in pair is respect. It's fairly simple. There's no place in a dating relationship where someone is demeaning the other person, disrespecting the other person, not being kind and considerate to the other person. If you see any kind of behavior with a basic lack of derech eretz or respect, you have to really wonder, you have to send off the alarms. Red flag. If that's how they're going to treat you now, you can best be sure you're going to have problems later. I know I had a wonderful couple. After the engagement, he stopped allowing her to talk to her mother at the dining room table. He tried to control her, and there was a broken engagement. Better to find out then than now. But it's very important, respect, that the person should be respectful, that the guy should hopefully at least open the door once or twice to the car, and they should be considerate, please, thank yous, etc. If you see crass behavior, and that's how it's starting now, it's only going to get worse later when people get more comfortable with you. So I want to thank you tonight for joining me for today's presentation. I think we got a lot of golden nuggets that we mined out of the presentation. If you have any further questions on dating with Shalom Bayit, you need my help to put together a top 10 list, you're in a relationship and you need some guidance on it, you'd like to get matched up, you can reach out to me from anywhere in the world. 305-206-1916. Again, 305-206-1916. If anybody's in Israel, well, I have good news for you. We're having a huge pre-Purim Shidduch event Tuesday, February 28th in Jerusalem at a place called Bet Knesset HaNasi, famous for having Rabbi as the rabbi for many years before he moved to Har Nof. It's right there in Rechavia. I welcome everyone. The flyer's been out. If you want more information, you can write me, you send me a message on Instagram, or you can write me to my WhatsApp, 305-206-1916. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I want to take this opportunity to offer and express my sincere gratitude to the administrators of JL Events LA for giving me the opportunity to present to you tonight, and I wish you all great hatzlacha, and may I have the pleasure to hear only great news from all of you that we should dance at all your weddings within the year. Have a wonderful day and Shabbat Shalom.